how I join another strand. I've decided to put a different color on for this light one. This is some remnant of a coat or something, so it's getting a little skinny down here. Now also this brown one is going to need to be joined, and I don't want to join them right exactly at the same spot. It makes a little bit of a lump where the seams are, so I'm going to go back here and join the new color onto this light strand back here. So I'm going to put a pin, just trying to catch just the top layer of fabric right as this strand comes out from under its crossing strand. That'll be my mark for where to cut. I know I want to see new color here. I don't want to see any of the old color peeking out. So if I cut on this line, that'll be my seam allowance that will allow the seam to fall directly underneath this crossing strand. And now this dark brown down here, I'll put another pin down here just through the top layer. Once again, the same thing, just as it comes out from under the crossing strand will be my cutting mark, then the seam will fall underneath there. I'll show you what I mean. I also want to put, sometimes I use a clothespin, but this wool is so thick and heavy, I don't believe that will hold it. Now I unbraid, keeping the pins in the fabric. Unbraid so that I have enough room to work. I think I'll do this dark one first. I have my new strand here. Sometimes you can't tell which is the front and which is the back by looking, but usually if I just give the strand a little bit of a tug, it likes to fold one way much more than the other way. It doesn't really want to curl around this way. It wants to curl this way. So I'll use that to my advantage. That helps to get the fold in there if there's no reason to use it the other way. Now what I do is put the edge of the new strand, okay, this is my old strand coming down, this is the right side of it. I put this edge of the new strand right along the pin, and I'm going to sew a seam from this corner down to here. And one more tip, if you're going to get off a little bit of this angle, the 45 degrees, it's better to angle this way and end up with a slightly shorter seam than to have it angled this way and have an even longer seam to try to hide. That'll show. So if I do anything, I cock it this way just a little bit. That'll allow my seam to come down just about like this, and that pin that marks where I want to see new color, that'll be well beyond my seam line there. So I just grab this pin, stick it in here, and go to my sewing machine. You can sew your seams by hand too. I'm just usually working at the sewing table and stitch them up. Use a pretty small stitch length. here's my new seam. And I trim that pretty close, especially with this bulky wool. It's going to be an 1/8 inch or less here. And there you have a nice bias seam. I'm going to do this one right away also. I'm going to change the color here to this small check. So once again, this is the right side. I just lay this across here so that when I stitch down that line, that seam will fall above the pin. This definitely has a right and a wrong side. This was a coat and some insulation or something was glued to it. It's kind of crispy, but I really like the pattern on it, so. Here's my seam. I'm going to trim this off. Sometimes the seam isn't very accurate and I just cut that. If I decide that's sticking out too much, I just cut it off. This is not quilting where you have to be super accurate with your bias seams and all that. It's quite forgiving. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a relaxing hobby, I think, for me anyway. So now I'm going back to my pin here. I think I'll just take that out. I'll continue braiding. This is not quite as quick as I normally braid because I'm working around the tripod and my wool can't really hang off the table like I'm used to, but hopefully you can see everything you need to see. So there's that seam. It's falling right under this crossing strand. And because it's on the bias, it doesn't show on the back either. The seam is hidden up there on the back side. Here's the next seam. I don't always hide the seams so carefully for if I'm not changing color. It just depends on what the pattern is, and like this particular wool probably wouldn't even see a seam in there if it was right in the top of the loop. Darker colors it typically hides pretty well. And sometimes you're able, if the seam is close to a loop one way or the other, almost hidden, you can just back up a little bit and either braid a little bit looser for a few strands or a little tighter, and then it will hide. So I'm going to braid another foot or two here and then show you some more lacing.